Kicking things off in this Blu-ray spotlight, we have Futurama Volume 5, a 2-disc Blu-ray set that sees the return of the much-heralded Matt Groening cartoon to primetime television. Now, Futurama is one of those shows I always wanted to be a fan of, and even considered myself a fan of for a long time, and then kind of eventually realized I don't actually like it all that much. But seeing as how it's been a long time since I've watched it, and seeing as how I figured, well, it's on Blu-ray and it's a new series, sort of, it's time to revisit it and see how I feel about it. And the end result, sadly, is largely the same. I just don't like Futurama all that much. Not even in comparison to The Simpsons, which of course is what most people do. I just don't find this show particularly entertaining. It suffers a little bit from that syndrome I don't care for, where there are no likable characters on the show. With the exception of Leela, who's kind of a cool character. Even Fry is kind of too much of an idiot sometimes to actually be that enjoyable. And most of the other characters are just rude and obnoxious and not as funny as they should be, frankly. And that's the thing about Futurama, is I just don't find that the humor works all that well. I like a lot of the art direction of the show. I think some of the creative stuff they come up with for the advertisements and things like that in the future is really clever, but by and large, watching an episode of the show does not usually end up with me laughing or even feeling good about myself for watching it. So Futurama isn't my cup of tea, but I know there's a lot of fans out there, so they will be happy to have this set on Blu-ray. The show looks great. Colors especially are fantastic. Image clarity, of course, is terrific. The outlines of everything, the black outlines, are really sharp and clear. And the surround soundtrack is also pretty good. For a television show, you do get a pretty good amount of rear channel use and some nice kind of ambiance and activity in the rear channels. As a 2-disc set, you also get a number of good extra features, including full-length audio commentaries in all of the episodes, an original video comic book called The Adventures of Delivery Boy Man, Bend It Like Bender, which is a music video, a Behind the Fungus Making a Hit Song featurette, a previously on Futurama feature, which is handy to catch up on what's been going on in the past seasons, and a live table read of the episode The Prisoner of Benda, as well as a collection of deleted scenes. So a lot of good stuff there for fans of the film. Next up, switching genres, we have a couple of really terrible horror films, actually, including Saw 3D, the final chapter unrated. This is a Blu-ray 3D, also comes with a 2D version of the film and a DVD and a digital copy. Now, I haven't watched most of the Saw sequels. I find this whole torture porn genre not my cup of tea, but this movie really is terrible. In addition to just being ridiculously over the top with the gore, they're just badly made films. I mean, everything from like the direction and the script to the lighting, even, like, you look at it and it looks like a cheap, low-budget horror film. And for a movie in the 7th of a series that's grossed, you know, about $50 to $80 million a piece, you'd think they could at least make them look like decent films. And it's just filled with plot holes and inane dialogue and bad acting. There's just really nothing good about this film. I'm very glad it's the final chapter. I hope it stays that way. The 3D effects work fairly well. It's a good 3D Blu-ray, and you get to see some intestines flying out at you. It's not the type of film that goes out of its way to present 3D imagery stuff. It's not one of those ones that's consistently shoving stuff at the screen. I like that about it. So it's a pretty good mix. Colors seem a little bit muted, but I think that might be the way the film was shot rather than an effect of the 3D. And the surround sound is also very active. It really does, you know, let you hear everyone die in gruesome detail from all of your speakers. Now, a ton of extra features on this. In addition to the 3D and the 2D version, you get producer's audio commentary, a writer's audio commentary, deleted and extended scenes, music videos, a 52 Ways to Die feature that recounts all of the traps from the Saw films, plus the theatrical trailer and the Lionsgate Live hoo-ha stuff that they offer for that. So for Saw fans, there's a lot of bang for your buck. Following that, we have Chain Letter, which is somehow an even worse movie, in which this killer sends out these emails, chain letter emails, that say if you don't pass this on, you're going to die, but then people die anyway, and the killer actually kills them with a chain, as if that wasn't literal enough. They had to actually have all the people die by chain. So you've got some over-the-top blood and guts, but it's as hackneyed as they come. The characters are cookie cutter, the deaths are uninteresting, the writing is terrible, the direction is weak. There's really nothing about Chain Letter that I can recommend, except if you happen to be a diehard Twilight fan. Nikki Reed is one of the lead characters, and genre favorites Keith David and Brad Dourif show up as well, so that's a little bit of fun. But really, the whole movie is kind of a waste of time. It doesn't even look particularly good in high def. Colors are muted, the image clarity is good, but there's some softer moments, some scratchier moments where there's some excessive grain. The soundtrack, it has some good kind of surround moments occasionally, and of course it ratchets things up quite a bit when it needs to. But again, like so many horror films, it doesn't really strike a good balance. It's quiet one minute and then super loud the next. And so if you have kids sleeping a few doors down the way like I do, you have to keep your hand on the volume control, which I'm not a big fan of. Next up, we have Lebanon, the highly acclaimed war film by Israeli filmmaker Samuel Moaz. It's an interesting film. It's about 4 soldiers during one of the Israeli wars, basically kind of not trapped in a tank, but in a tank, stuck in a tank. It sort of has like a Das Boot feel, but in a tank. And they travel through Lebanon and kind of experience parts of this war conflict, all from the confines of within this tank. And it's a very interesting take on the war film. It certainly is different from a lot of things that I've seen. It's enjoyable. It is a good film. It's a little intense, without a doubt, but it's definitely worth watching. I don't know if it's the kind of thing I'm going to pop in and watch over and over again every Friday night, but it's a good film, and I'm glad that I saw it. It looks really great in high definition, especially for a foreign film, because sometimes they don't always transfer as well. And the surround sound is pretty good, but again, this is a film that takes place inside of a tank, and so it's interesting sound design, to say the least, but it's definitely a film that's worth watching. Unfortunately, there are no extra features on the Blu-ray at all, so that's a little bit of a disappointment if you're a fan of the film, which I think some people definitely will be. It certainly is an interesting approach, and I think there's going to be some talk about this film in the future. Finally, we have a trio of favorite films just in time for Valentine's Day, some romantics from Warner Brothers. We have Pleasantville, You've Got Mail, and 10. Now, that gives you one really good film, one terrible film, and one pretty solid film that's aged a little bit. Let's see if you can guess which ones they are. Actually, you won't have to guess because I'm going to tell you. Pleasantville is the really good film. I've always had a soft spot for this film. Gary Ross did a great job with this story of these kids who go into this sort of picturesque, Leave It to Beaver world and sort of turn it upside down. And it's one of the few movies that I can actually watch Reese Witherspoon in. I don't care for her at all, but she's fine in this movie. And it's just a lot of fun. William H. Macy, Tobey Maguire, Jeff Daniels, Joan Russell, really great. Joan Allen, excuse me, not Joan Russell. A really great cast, and it's just a really fun movie from start to finish. And to this day, I will still quote it often and say, "Where's my dinner?" It's just that kind of a film that you can have a lot of fun with. You've Got Mail, on the other hand, is a terrible, terrible, terrible movie in which Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan prove that no matter how much chemistry you have on screen together in previous films, you can always find ways to not have any chemistry at all, and this movie did that. The only thing about You've Got Mail on Blu-ray that's worth it is the fact that on the bonus DVD, it includes The Shop Around the Corner, the original movie with James Stewart and Margaret Sullivan that You've Got Mail is based on. But if you're a Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan fan, skip You've Got Mail, go straight to Sleepless in Seattle. It's a much better movie. And then, of course, 10 we have with Dudley Moore and Bo Derek. This is the movie that made Bo Derek a household name and cemented Dudley Moore as an actual box office draw, even if only for a little while. It's a Blake Edwards film, which means it's actually pretty good. It is a little dated, though. I mean, there's no denying that this film from the very early 80s is a little bit hokey in places, a little bit dated, but because it's Blake Edwards, it actually holds up quite nicely. And you can actually kind of look at it as like a nostalgic piece for the 80s. So that's fun to have on Blu-ray. All of the discs carry over their extra features from their original DVDs. So like on Pleasantville, you get a commentary with Gary Ross, an isolated score track with composer Randy Newman providing commentary, a featurette called The Art of Pleasantville, a Fiona Apple music video, and the trailer. And then on You've Got Mail, you get commentary with Nora Ephron and Lauren Schuler-Donner, 2 making-of featurettes, an HBO First Look special, a movie tour, a Carole King music video, a music-only track, and a theatrical trailer, while 10 gives you a vintage featurette called A Dream, a Fantasy, a 10, as well as the theatrical trailer. All the movies are basically your kind of standard upgrade over DVD in terms of their sound and picture quality. None of the films look bad. They certainly don't look worse than they do on DVD, but none of them is so amazing that you have to rush out and buy it on Blu-ray unless you're a fan of the film. Pleasantville probably benefits the most as being both the most newest movie and the one that's the most visually interesting. Some of the kind of special effects sequences with the color and the black and white and the painting and stuff like that do come to life nicely. So it's the best looking film of the bunch, but none of them really offer up a world-changing view of the film now that it's in high def.